pray.
I'll share my screen.
Sangye Chodang Tsogi Chonamla Changchu Bardo Dangni Gyabsoche Dagi Chunin Gibe Sonamgi Rola Pinje Sangye Drubar Shu Sangye Chodang Tsogi Chonamla Changchu Bardo Dangni Gyabsoche Dagi Chunin Gibe Sonamgi Rola Pinje Sangye Drubar Shu Sangye Chodang Tsogi Chonamla Changchu Bardo Dangni Gyabsoche Dagi Chunin Gibe Sonam Gendro La Pinche San Gendro Barasho Simjen Tamje Devadang Devin Gyudang Dembara Gyuji Simjen Tamje Dongel Dan Dongel Gi Gyudang Tewaran Gyuruji Simjen Tamje Dongel Meben Devadang Mindrawan Gyuruji Simjen Tamje Niring Chadang Nidang Tebe Dang Nyumla Nebaran Gyuruji Simjen Tamje Devadang Devin Gyudang Dembaran Gyuji Simjen Tamje Dongel Dan Dongel Gi Gyudang Tewaran Gyuji Simjen Tamje Dongel Meben Devadang Mindrawan Gyuji Simjen Tamje Niring Chadang Nidang Tebe Dang Nyumla Nebaran Gyuji Simjen Tamje Devadang Devin Gyudang Dembaran Gyuji Simjen Tamje Dongel Dan Dongel Gi Gyudang Tewaran Gyuji Simjen Tamje Dongel Meben Devadang Mindrawan Gyuji Simjen Tamje Niring Chadang Nidang Tebe Dang Nyumla Nebaran Gyuji Ramjam Zorawangu Landa Veni Gesan Tawaran Drubi Jungwa Jansebe Kime Tanjin Zabai Sense Shini Namla Kui Cha Tsel. Okay.
Come on, let's go over here. Let's go over here.
Come. So, as a continuing topic, impermanent and faith or devotion. So now I think, in a general speaking, in Buddhism, don't depend on the person, depend on the teaching, don't depend on the teachings, the word, go into the meaning, and even the meaning, don't just kind of like satisfy meaning that understood by our limited awareness, but again, seeing that meaning that understood by more further, deeper awareness. It has a tremendous encouragement of kind of going more further. And it has lots of encouragement of something that responsibility and our own kind of, how you say, effort. And then we have a faith and devotion. That's kind of like a special deal. Once you have a faith and devotion, we don't need to have all of that process. Things fall in our lap. You just have to have a faith and devotion. So that's kind of shortcut the deal. Sometimes, so sometimes like, oh, just have a faith and devotion. We don't need to kind of analyze. Sometimes we go too far, or we have so much analyze. Let's look at it. And somehow we forget, end of the day, the decision have to make from our gut, some level of a faith for our own self or whatever. Wisdom just give you the facts. It lays. the intuition, the choice that will make it. Wisdom will be totally confused. You don't know what to do. Everything's possible. Anything's possible. So end of the day, so-called the mind, which is a part of that kind of like intuition or devotion or faith or whatever we're going to call, that's really kind of seals the deal or whatever. That makes the kind of form conviction. So wisdom can do all the analysis, evaluations, bringing all the datas. But end of the day, the devotion and the trust and the faith takes the final step to making the choice. So therefore, so there is a fundamentally what I'm saying here, there is a kind of a collaboration in the listening, the wisdom trying to listen, respecting the devotion, and the devotion and faith also kind of listening for the wisdom. So we as an individual person, so over here, wisdom, which is basically, assessment is basically nature of reality. Basically what that is, basically adapting whatever going on and able to adapt, adjust, analyzed, but making able to form, sticking into the form decision, so therefore faith have a very, very powerful rule, I think, very, very powerful rule into our own spiritual journey. Like, for example, in Sutrayana practice, lots of in Sutrayana practice, we need to kind of nurture, like, for example, when we say 3 principles of the path, and that 3 principles of the path, when we're trying to do a meditation in 3 principles of the path, definitely wisdom need to analysis and observe, but the growth and the deepening the wisdom, I think individuals have to carry tremendous devotion and faith into the lineage wherever you're receiving all these blessings. And that doesn't mean you disregard yourself. That also brings sense of honor and respect for our own self in our own dharma jewel. So fundamentally, the nurturing condition for our concentration practice, our bodhicitta practice, our wisdom practice is fundamentally nurtured by faith and devotion. And maybe in one side of our mind, it might say, oh yeah, I want to know. I want to see the detail. That's also true, but in real life experience, sometimes there's something you are basically logically detailed, but there's nothing to way to kind of explain or understand. There's a much more in a subconscious level, something much more deeper level. You have that kind of like a form conviction. And these kind of like individual strength is we need to nurture by practice of such as a 7-limb practice or practice of a Jorchu. These are like a really, I mean, like a faith is like the flower. It needs to be grow. We cannot like kind of mold it and kind of bring it. You need to kind of like a flower. It need to be grow. It need to be nurtured. Then it need to be protected because there's so many our inner hindrance, inner obstacles that challenge our convictions and devotions and faiths and so on and so forth. So anyway, what I'm saying over here is it's not so much about faith. how you say, as an individual, as a human being, I think everything that we kind of like sincerely engaging whatever action doesn't require us the detail need to be understood. So basically, our human intuition, I think this is a very important, like how we, I think there is a intuition may, from my perspective, may be wrong. Intuition may play important role to awakening our human devotion and faith. And the intuition can handle, it doesn't bother. Intuition, our intuition is not bothered by requirements of logics and reasons and the evidence. And the intuition somehow it is something individual, karmic things. It is not universal reality to defining. It's an individual karmic potential. And so therefore, we all have a different type of a different level of our own intuition, so therefore, it is something so the conviction is choosing not, of course, not ignoring the logic and reasons, but there's a much more karma involvement rather than this and that, so therefore conviction or devotion or faith is kind of brought or awakening by karma rather than evidence. But evidence not necessarily ignore it, but they doesn't necessarily carry the key point. Now, how we work as an individual person, our lens of awareness kind of going back and forth. Sometimes we want to see through the lens of intuition, and sometimes, intuition, basically what I'm saying is a karmically sensing. And sometimes we want to see things from the lens of conventional reality. Okay. So fundamentally, I think like an intuition or devotion or faith, they cannot survive or function or engage by its own self. It needs to have some level of wisdom awareness needs kind of supporting. And again, same thing, wisdom awareness to fully able to function, you have to have a conviction and devotion and intuition somehow also need to be involved. So they all are kind of a collaborated way of working, but sometimes we tend to kind of grow individually, want to grow wisdom first, and then later this and that. Maybe that's not really right way of looking. So to creating this kind of any kind of realization or anything, maybe we as an individual person growing all three together, the awareness, the impermission, and also certain extents there's some level of a conviction and intuition also involving. So it is maybe kind of like a collaborated way of growing rather than I'll do this one first and then I'll do this one second, and until this one doesn't happen, I'm not going to accept that one. So fundamentally, we have to be to able to grow wisdom and a devotion and conviction and intuitions. These things to grow, I think that our attitude it have to be a very open attitude. it is not necessarily caught into the assumptions. So it need to be really kind of very opened. Okay. So now again, common sense is also not necessarily ignored. It's very important to have a common sense. And faith and devotion and intuition really sets our what we want to get in our own spiritually. Able to get that very clear. Sometimes once we lose that and we are just stuck into the conventional reality or into the common sense, since we don't have a kind of a spiritual vision, and trying to involving into the practice of a wisdom and the faith and devotion, so on and so forth. If the vision, spiritual vision, is not necessarily true to our own self, then we are easily kind of like lead for any different directions, so therefore these three, like the intuition and conviction and the awareness, based on these kind of three, our inner quality, basically applying to our own spiritual vision, whatever vision that we want to have, spiritual vision, direction, or that needs to be, I think, very clearly, and our daily practice is to making that true to our own self for whatever certain level, whatever in our own level, to making that true to our own self. And then I think on the journey into the path, karma is constantly changing, and karma is interdependent, and there is an individual karma need to collaboratively work with the collective karma. So therefore we cannot ignore the conventional and common sense, so therefore faith and devotion is really need to pay attention into the common sense and conventional reality. However, it not get distracted by the conventional reality and common sense, that not losing the direction or not falling into the distraction is set by the spiritual vision. If we are very clear where we are, if we are just taking spiritual ride, just taking a ride, then it's okay. We can sometimes have a picnic in conventional reality. And sometimes we can have a break and just have some kind of spacious awareness during the wisdom awareness. We can have some kind of these kind of like spiritual gifts then we can receive, and gifts for our own self. Just gift. It's just gift. So I think it is sometimes I feel faith and devotion, when we're just talking kind of like a separate inherent subject like that, may be complicated too. It becomes kind of very strange, but it need to be related with how to liberate from suffering. It need to be related with a deeper sense of self. Particularly once it comes to the for example, from the Buddhist perspective, we are like a Russian doll. We have 3 layers. There's these external ones, and there's the subtle ones, and there's the extreme subtle ones. So it's like layers. And then I think the world in a subtle awareness in that universe, system of logic that we have right now have a no space and cannot function. And entering into such a world is the fuel is the devotion and faith. Maybe launched into the wisdom, some kind of deep meditation of emptiness, dissolving the outer layer, the Russian doll, that outer layer totally dissolves in terms, not that kind of intrinsicness. And then aftermath is then basically is take over by journeys, it take over by, in a kind of mind of a devotion, mind of a trust, mind of the trust word is so material and conventional. So maybe conviction, I don't know. It's just a trust is easy to understand, but trust is a very specific thing. It is maybe devotion, and these things are more than trust. You can trust with a very arrogant, then in a general if we make a format, of course we love logic and reason and so on and so forth. That's maybe like a very old style. Maybe this logic and reason is maybe like when we're driving shift gear car. Today's everything's in automatic. Now even worse than automatic now is like what artificial driving. Somebody drives, you just tell them go somewhere. So as a technology have all this range, maybe syllogistic logic systems maybe is a very ancient from the point of view of direct perceptions. It is a very kind of like putting in the museum, syllogistic logic way of conducting the understanding of nature of reality. So much more applying into so so fundamentally what I'm trying to communicate over here is mind of less fear and mind of determinant, mind of a determinant. So basically faith and devotion, or I think it's a much more kind of determinant mind. Sometimes we use kind of surrendering and so on and so forth. I think it's, in essence, is something choice. The mind that make a decision, mind that make a formed decision, mind that make a really formed determination. Maybe faith is some kind of activity, or devotion, so-called, is kind of maybe is kind of like the surface nature of what the mind that may behave. In essence, maybe it's much more determination or kind of decision, conviction. If we make all the decision based on only logic and reasons, I think every day our decision will change, because logic and reasons are looking into the shifting karmic reality. And when you're trying to correspond it with that kind of reality, yes, it is a constantly changing, shifting reality. Logic and reason will be changed, choice will be constantly changed, and then that can become really chaos. So therefore, something that's, we like to say much more from depth of the heart, much more deeper. I think that's deeper is something that not necessarily ignoring the logic and reasons, but it's somehow trying to go beyond the kind of just the conventional logic and reasons. It's not necessarily ignoring the conventional reality, not necessarily ignoring the common sense, but it is not totally making decision and choice based on the common sense. This common sense is a part of the decision in making the choice. Okay, so basically, sometimes faith and a devotion is something kind of karmically where you are pushed into the whatever direction. And in that process of a direction, whatever choice and intuitively whatever you made, maybe that is the fundamental devotion and fundamental conviction. And the element, the manifestation, is sometimes we get distracted. Faith and devotion is, I think that manifestation can be secondary in a general sense, but whatever manifestation happens, I think need to be true expression for our own self. And that also helps to strengthening our intuition and conviction, because we are orienting, we are training our own awareness into tune into that kind of way of being aware. Okay, so but still you'd have the back and the support and kind of like a feedback by the wisdom awareness. That's, I think, is still very important. Okay. Okay. And in the histories, lots of great masters, they express their transformation of a spiritual journey during when they have a deep experience of a conviction and devotion. Okay, so this is sometime, also, students, friends, they say like, I have a kind of very strange experience. It's like, I think if these experiences are just created by our own logic and reasons and just by the wisdom, then we can repeat. I say in the science, what do you call that? Like to research, you have to repeat again. We can repeat. Sometimes we don't know how to repeat. Oh, I have that, and now I want to have that experience. But these things happens through the karmic awakening, and somehow for in a certain level, mind is very much surprise. Why is a surprise? Because there is no control and expectation. And there's such a perfect climate. And some people, we have this kind of surprise experience. Even also some of the dream are the really one of the good examples. If you really kind of plant it to dreaming something, and you never get dreamed. So therefore, in the mind of dream mind is a very, very, it won't listen for our common behavior. So therefore, some practitioners, they're really trying to, okay, how I can utilize dream mind, because it's already going to ignore all the distractions. So there's an effort to kind of those distractions, so therefore, so faith is something that what I'm saying is very protected by nature from distraction. I will say that. Distractions of a conventional reality. Okay, so anyway, the point is that kind of like a subtle karmic potential awakening, while individual having this kind of like a deep sense of inspiration, or genuine inspiration, and at the same time having kind of at the background have those nurtured by the view of emptiness, and so on and so forth. So when we live alone just by wisdom, it can be very sophisticated, but also it invites all the kind of distraction. So therefore, I think even when we do analytical meditation, particularly like when we're doing analytical meditation, if we do based on a simple kind of logic and reasons, it will definitely going to backfire, and you get really tired, and you get kind of like how you say, you want to reject in such a meditation. So fundamentally, we need to kind of create the element of maybe spiritual intuitive. What you call today we have these medical mediums, so we have to have a spiritual mediums. So basically reality is not simple. Reality is very strange. And prediction of a reality, even more stranger. Present reality, I think, is a more kind of obvious. That reality of tomorrow, and these reality, awareness of a tomorrow or future. Anyway, anyway, I think there's a universe. The phenomena are very crazy and very amazing and unpredictable, and so it is a chaos. So only way to handle is a gentle way, and that is intuition or conviction or devotion. And world of enlightenment even more further complicated. Spiritual path, world of a spiritual path. So anyway, so fundamentally, what I'm saying over here is like, if you're doing meditation, sometimes when you want to do meditation and you want just kind of work with my own mind, that's sometimes we're doing that. I feel like we're very materialistic, still some quite materialistic. Okay, I want just to do. It don't have a. It is we are treating as like some kind of things to fix. So our spiritual path, spiritual journey, step by step, inch by inch, you have to have an element of a faith and a devotion and these things. So basically, even in a general conventional life, end of the day, karma is what really kind of, way things going to happen. So karmically working in a much more, in a deeper sense of working, I think if there is something, not necessarily ignoring the logic and reasons, but fully integrated, but at the end, you kind of rest into the intuition and conviction or devotion and faith in that way, something that's because when we have a too much controlling and expectation, and that's is really, we are trying to ignore the karmic fundamental foundation, that we can do it, we can fix it. General speaking, yes, but not the way we're trying to do it, just by facts and the logic and reasons. So therefore, even like, for example, just to overcome our sadness or depressions or these kind of like some level of our conventional challenge, of course, there is a different methods, but in essence, if we can solve through practice of a faith and conviction and a devotion, that doesn't mean you will not seek the another condition. It needs to be very holistic and inclusive. If we just depends only into the conventional, then I think it will really long journey. It will become very, very long journey. Maybe we need this for rest of our life. So there need to be something grow within our own self. And that inner growth is inch by inch. We need to create this practice of a conviction and a devotion. Through the lineage prayers, through the practice of refuge. In the end of the day, practice of refuge and a practice of a seven limb or the Georgia practice is the end of the day is much more into the reflection of our own inner challenge. It is an observation of our own inner world. And the observation of our own inner world, it has so many layers, so many layers. So therefore, we cannot become so arrogant, says pretending, I know everything. I know myself everything. And I think sometimes in one extreme, we're trying to kind of, I know who I am. And I think that is can be dangerous. So my key point over here is karma need to bring into the our when we are happy, when we are challenged, when we are depressed. It's not to purpose for blaming. Sometimes we use karma for excuse or to blame, or it's not for that. When I say bringing the karma, basically way to transform and a way to understand fundamentally, not understand in terms, maybe to grow the way to grow the awareness wherever we are in karmic reality. And basically, we can overcome the blockage. Basically, devotion and faith will kind of dissolve all this blockage, kind of karmic knots, what you call knots, those, so I think this is something very, very in the end of the day, I think basically person him or her become much more grounded. So that's what the faith and you know now, like for example, chanting. Sometimes chanting is also sometimes quite important, I think. Maybe up to individual. Chanting is have also some kind of opening up or nurturing the human faith, human heart, particularly when you know what you're chanting, and particularly you have the some meaning, whatever you are chanting, there is some kind of deeper connection. And then these things are like, for example, in the early time when I received Lamrim teaching in the early time, it's all the time mandatory. The masters will recite the lineage prayer, and very, very, how you say, not just to sake of reciting, really trying to feel the lineage blessing. So there is already, before you start the actual teaching, the audience is already kind of nurtured the blessings of the lineage. And then the teachings really kind of like a lens into their heart. So therefore, like a chanting is also, I think, very, very powerful. Sometimes when I was in the monastery, sometimes we have a chanting goes so long, then I was very bored. When it's got too long, then it's like, but and there's this, we have a Heart Sutra chanting, and Heart Sutra chanting, and that takes like almost like an hour and a half, Heart Sutra chanting. It's just like that chanting meant to integrating with meditation. And there's a winter semester we have this gathering, and there's for 1 week we have lots of prayer festival, and we have to get up morning like 2:30. The session starts morning 2:30, and I was like a small child and like sleepy, but we have to go. But then the chanting master will start. There's a session of starting the Heart Sutra chanting that almost take an hour and a half, and it meant to be a meditation session. And during that time, discipliners and nobody can move here and there. Everybody had to be very still. So for me, there's the best time to catch up my sleep. So, but then, like later on, it's like a really amazing, like how, usually Heart Sutra, it doesn't take any time to recite, but that chanting and it gives you the flavor of a spaciousness. The chanting have that kind of like, like some chant have like a kind of like very spaciousness. And these chantings somehow, even now when I kind of remember the chanting, it's kind of like you are in a like kind of like a big sky country. If you make that kind of feeling, that gives you that kind of chanting. It's kind of like a read. And same thing in a Tantric college, we have this. There's one verse is basically about nature of reality, non-duality kind of expression, and it have this kind of like richness and the spaciousness collaborated kind of in Tantric college. There's only one verse, but it takes long time to recite. Just go through that kind of like a chanting, and gives you the flavor of a state of mind, kind of very vivid, spacious. The verse that they recite in a Tantric college, basically essential points of kind of like a non-dualistic expressions of and this is only one verse they will chant very majestically. It takes a lot, maybe like, I don't know, it's like takes like 15 minutes or 10 minutes or something. Only one verse. And again, it gives you the vibration and the feeling of a very spaciousness. And the Heart Sutra is, and it's so, sometimes in a later part, it's so spaciousness, just get like lost and sometimes fall asleep. So get relaxed. Anyway, they give you that flavor. And then, lineage prayer and these things gives you like a kind of like a heart feeling. And so I think for even a wisdom journey, even a method journey, we have to involvement of our body, speech, and mind all together. So to involvement of all the body, speech, and mind, then we need to have it is a lead by conviction and a devotion and intuition. It lead by, when you're chanting, it's lead by devotion and conviction. When you're chanting Heart Sutra, you need to be lead by that kind of state of awareness. We are not singing. So I will say is a very, very important some of the poems, even the wisdom poems, even the method poems, that I think is very important to you to having these poems part of your own daily practice or daily Dharma awareness, something that you can read it and you can kind of appreciate that, so like a poetry, poems are like method of human expressions, or the method to opening our human heart and appreciation. So fundamentally, when we say whatever label, terminology we use, devotion or faith or whatever, in this case, basically how to open our human heart. Okay, that's the fundamental. We are, all these labels, all these terminologies are labeled based on a behavior, not necessarily into the nature or the essence of that actual feeling. So we don't get distracted with the labels. In the fundamentally, I will say faith and devotions are hard communication, hard talk, heart to talk. Not like ahead and strategizing. And if you say this, I'll say that. Maybe you're this and that, and like just chaos. So so basically, what I'm over here is saying, like one thing when we're discussing faith and devotion, the culture element and the history of the label itself, we need to go beyond that. So therefore, at the early time, I was telling a pure state of a mind, clear state of a mind. Okay, these things like a little bit don't get stuck with the label itself and the history of the label itself or culture of the label itself. Don't get stuck. And that labels are just kind of expression and behavior of what is the essence of a state of a mind. In the early time, I was a clear state of awareness. And then today, basically what I'm saying is just basically, it is a karmic communication or heart communication. In a faith and a devotion, so-called way of talking, that is a basically reality and the choice and the decision that we are making have a fundamental foundation based on a conviction. It's not just simply made through logic and reasons. And moving forward, our awareness is a final choice and final decision is made through conviction and devotion and intuition, which is also included by the process of awareness and the wisdom. It doesn't mean that like totally blind faith. End of the day, it have a let going, but the full responsibility. That kind of a choice or conviction. It have a faith and a devotion have an element of non-controlling. Non-controlling is what it is and accepting. So so again over here, because our human awareness, due to the habit, we want to really either manipulate, either control, either resist, and there's lots of kind of based on our ego needs. And when we took that route on the process, there's a lot of negativity, karma, and harms kind of we're going to create. And also, we may not able to kind of ground it, whatever, just by relying into the logic. So basically, this, accepting acceptance becomes an important part of how we work with our human emotion. And acceptance, if we just give the full responsibility only for wisdom, acceptance can be very unstable, or we are not able to create acceptance. If we kind of awakening, acceptance, particularly karmic acceptance, is a fundamentally created through devotion and conviction to Buddha Dharma or refuge or merit field. If that's backed by that, acceptance can be free of a burden. And sometimes we do the acceptance, but with a burden, without the burden. So that's, I think, so I think, fundamentally what I'm saying is in our daily, so basically we as a human being, and there's a layers, okay? So we need to be aware our existence as an individual, not necessarily fully decision made it by our very grossest and conventional mind. So and that means like how we can do that. I think we need to open up our own self into this kind of state of awareness, inclusive with the logic and reason, but there is a faith and devotion and conviction, something that's go beyond, okay? And these things we can develop through the practice. As a Buddhist, then refuge practice is the fundamental. In a refuge practice, there's one expression. It says like once you go through the practice of a refuge, the merit is infinite, and so on and so forth. And I feel merit is labeled into the state of a mind when it is free from controlling an expectation. When it's a merit is a labeled state of a human awareness when it's let go all the controlling and the expectations, and that's the merit. Then when we have an expectation for the merit itself, then it's kind of, I don't know, it's complicated. Sometimes we becomes, like particularly myself, becomes merit consumer. Okay, today is a full moon, or more merit, and this is an auspicious day, is more merit. So there's like a consumer, merit consuming attitude may destroy it, all the merit. So fundamentally, merit is you just analyze, maybe, like, is this once the individual state of a mind, when it's let go, controlling and things. So then, yeah, plenty surprised. All the things that we dream may happen. So so in a way, faith and devotion and conviction is none other than let going the controlling attitude. Okay, so maybe that's in one aspect of the, when we say faith and the devotion, there's a lots of kind of our habit, kind of let going and trusting our own karma. And then, okay, like for example, time of death, and Buddhism is very important you know, daily sadhana practice is all the time kind of like making death wish list. Sometimes I feel like that. You're trying to die again. You're trying to rehearsal the process of dying. Every day you're rehearsing the way of dying. You're rehearsing. And anyway, you can do all your best, but still things can happen. So only way to move forward is the faith and conviction. That's all. Things can go. So time of death, again, if we ask which kind of state of mind should I have? For me, I think loving kindness and compassion is really good, but then it may go into some another place. it may open up another Pandora box. And may ruin the journey and make chaos. So anyway, of course, if individual can stick with there, I think, yes, absolutely be very powerful. But I think the safest one is time of a death, death process happening. The safe one, the most not risky investment in time of a death is, I think, faith and devotion. If we ride state of our awareness, non-controlling and totally kind of riding the karma and convictions to the enlightened being, I mean, then our consciousness, nobody can stop. Whatever dedication we made it while we're alive, it will take that journey, that ride, There's no any, is basically the visibility is very good. So yes, the flight, that ride, we can take it really good, so and when we talk over, sometimes we all kind of like interested in a poor and so on and so forth, a time of death. I want to have a part of my, I say, before you leave this list, what you call that, power attorney, or what are they going to call? Make sure there's a power inside. Like for example, in Sarah, when sometimes like early time, there's one teacher. He's my Tibetan calligraphy and writing. He's my teacher. He's great, great master. And right before, when he was going through difficulty, then I went to see him, and with my teacher in Rinpoche, to Korean Ganden Tipa, we went to, and my teacher, he brought image, the picture of His Holiness in a wrapped with a kata. And the first thing when you see the patient, he just, okay, keep this one with you, and there's this image that's basically reflects and awakes his conviction and devotion. And also in Sarah, there's a one, he lives not too far from my house when I was in Sarah, and he's not necessarily known for great scholar, but he's known for kind of less grasping kind of personality. So anyway, he passed away, and then he stayed for, I think, 2 weeks or 1 week of clear light meditation. And it surprised, kind of, usually people expect, okay, such a master, yeah, kind of like expected he was going to be in clear light meditation time of that. But nobody expecting for him, and everybody surprised. And then they were asking, I was like the things that, and that's how that happened is there's one of his caregiver, and he noticed he's kind of like, he noticed that he's really now is kind of going through his, kind of a dissolution process, or his, transition taking. So he really kept one really big His Holiness picture next to him all that time, just staying there, nothing reciting. And then in a certain time, he saw his hands going like this while he's passing. His hands kind of like palms together and seeing that His Holiness image. And the monks, he told, like, he might enter into such this kind of clear light meditation. Maybe this only that invoking the devotion for his own, His Holiness and teacher, and that like really, that's the what you're thinking. The surprise happened, So I think. Even like, for example, sometimes we get, I want to a death process meditation so I can control my death and I can control my parto, so I can control my rebirth. Sometimes we mind get, okay, let me go through the procedures process and control it. And I think, during when we're doing our sadhana, yes, we kind of like a rehearsal and rehearsal. Time of death, when the gross mind is dissolving, mind itself is not so capability. Only things to way to go and kind of digest is just kind of staying state of mind into the devotion and faith, and then taking that right and just noticing and taking that right. So mind is not distracted, mind is not controlling, heart is fully opened and noticing, and you're going through that. So even like a death process meditation, and we're trying to, we need to rehearse with devotion and faith. So therefore, sometimes people trying to do this kind of general, I think it's not going to work, and that's we are trying to do the controlling attitude. The main ingredient, that awareness to have an effect into our next life journey, is once that awareness is run by the conviction and the devotion towards to the lineage of the master, state of a mind of the deer, then yes, the dissolution processes is just a reference. It's not the key thing. It's not latter. It is not that like you're going to hold in this process. So therefore, like then through the state of that faith and devotion, then arising into the loving, if the main yidam or the deity or the master is where you feel is the compassionate element, and then yes, of course, there's this kind of like a more kind of blossoming, different way of a faith and devotion kind of manifesting. That's possibility. So I think the key track, the way to kind of like launching our subtle awareness to moving into the right direction and the right ground, I think the human, so-called our human state of awareness, open state of heart. So basically, free zone of controlling. Okay, so that's, I think, even a time of that. So sadhana practice, and this I would like constantly. Now, when we look at for the whole structure, wisdom is almost like a or how you say, from my point of view, it looks like a housekeeping. Wisdom, first you do the Dharma. It's like a housekeeping. It make the space. It make the everything. The real ceremony, then everything happens through the devotion and conviction. Even for like sadhana, or even like a three kaya meditation or death process meditation. And however, when you say clear light meditation, it's basically, somehow we're able to pause the subtle mind, the extreme subtle mind. I don't know the word pause. Maybe pause is a relative in a pause into this karmic guest house. So anyway, the main thing is so basically, what is the key for going beyond this grossus mind is so-called conviction and devotion and faith. That's the key. And the wisdom is just setting the ground, clearing the ground. And then you walk, and once you reach the door to opening for more subtle awareness and extreme subtle awareness, I think the faith and the devotion for yidams, for whatever practice. And then there's this kind of critically format that you walk, you rehearsal, you trained, you're trying to make as a second nature of yourself. And then there's a natural flow. So that's, I think, a really, really important. And then it is a sorry. So, okay. Okay, so maybe my throat telling myself to stop, now you're talking too much. Okay, let's go to the question answer. Let's do a little bit question and then we can, anybody have a question? Sorry, I was like kind of talking too much.
Thank you, Rinpoche. That was wonderful. There were a couple of questions that came in last time. One is from Sneh, and it's, she said, Rinpoche made a comment last week or 2 weeks ago, referring to the role of emptiness in realizing bodhicitta. Rinpoche, could you please elaborate on this idea?
Realizing emptiness in the bodhicitta. Okay. I think meditation about emptiness, first step starting what you perceive, it's not necessarily in reality. I think this is not necessarily. This is just kind of like a evaluation of our human perception. So maybe if we do meditation of emptiness, maybe we have to have an evaluation of our awareness every day. End of the day, maybe let's go through evaluation process. Let's evaluate anger, attachment, and all this evaluation. Maybe Vajrasattva, maybe it's kind of evaluation. You're doing evaluation. And then what is the reality? Then through this kind of like evaluation, like basically what we perceive and whatever is what is existence, we need to feel some pain and contradiction. It is not that we can order like a new house. We need to have the meditation of emptiness. We need to demolish the old house and build the house on there, whether we like it or not. Is we cannot get there, order some another house. So to meditation of emptiness, we have to have some contradiction, feeling contradiction. Almost like a not trusting our own perception. And this is a difficult. And this needs to be convinced a lot. And usually, I think sometimes we go, I don't want to change my habit, but can I have a ready-made wisdom realizing emptiness? Can I order this in Amazon or something like that? Can I download that? It is I think, number one, this self-evaluation of our awareness. And, this I think in the physics, they talk a lot, like appearing and existence are not the same. So therefore, there's a department of physics. that department exists because what we see, what we perceive is not necessarily what it is. So this department flourish, and this department have a contribute a lot in our human civilization, and it may produce a lot in the future because of so I think we have to feel in a personal level, not as an intellectual and awareness level. I think this is this purification, evaluation, I think is step number one. Otherwise, how we can change the habit of a perception. If we don't able to change habit of perception, how we can have again the wisdom realizing emptiness. So evaluation is, I think, and that's really, we need to, like evening Vajrasattva practice. It's not just kind of like washing the hands. It's not that. It's like constantly evaluating, okay, how much perception, how I believed, and how much things I constructed, and what is it. I think there is a unanswered, not unsatisfied state of that. I think have to be, there's this kind of like a difficulty of some level of a painful. So through this personal dilemma, then we need to realize the emptiness. Personal dilemma of a experience, of a perception, experience of our awareness or perception. Dilemma happens because we have a karma. If we don't acknowledge that, then how we can have a wisdom realizing emptiness. So sometimes I used to talk in a realization of a conventional reality. What happens? I think once you have a realization of before ultimate reality, once you realize the conventional reality, everything will be going to ruin. all the parties are ruined. Okay, once you realize the conventional reality, everything is upside down. Everything's upside down. So there's this kind of like for realizing emptiness, we need to feel our world becoming upside down. Have to be very painful, unacceptable. Not by that journey was taken through the evaluation of our perception. And also not just scientific journey like that. We are looking through our own karma, and there's lots of integration that makes it spiritual journey rather than a scientific journey. Because there is not just analyzing, but we're very personal. Our spirit, our consciousness is part of the main character. So that's, I think, sometimes, okay, I will not evaluate my perception, but I want to create new wisdom and download in my own awareness. And that's it. I have a wisdom realizing emptiness, but side by side, grasping of truly existence. In the same hard drive, wisdom realizing emptiness and grasping all phenomena truly existence. but we want to minimize that grasping. So anyway, sorry of talking a strange thing, but I think we need to demolish that hard drive first. The hard drive which have a grasping of a truly existence. Then we can make a different software more better. Okay, anyway. So that's, I think, the meditation. And that pain and confusion will be also source of a generating compassion. Much more deeper compassion, like, oh, we are not like a compassion base of a suffering of change. It's much more in a, you can, everybody's going through this. Everybody's functioning based on this bad hard drive. Need to be demolished. So anyway, I think, it depends, is obviously you can have an empathy, definitely. Once you have a pain, when you feel pain, you don't need to meditate in empathy. You can pretty much, just slight shifting, we can create empathy. And then furthermore journey, like taking that into much more into not only empathy, but sense of engagement and a responsibility. And so you're taking for different route, then it's a whole different approach, But fundamentally, I think this this dilemma, not just kind of looking, reading Lamrim Chemo and then trying to, like understood this object of negation, and you're trying to kind of like logically trying to, I think that's kind of like a rehearsal, definitely. But that rehearsal need to come to actual. And when it comes to actual, yes, there will be, because we don't want, is changing habit is not easy. And that pain and that dilemma is important, I think, part of journey. And that contradiction we need to feel. That contradiction need to be real. At the same time, you are open to seeking furthermore. So I think can be, maybe not painful, no, and maybe maybe Gelugpa emptiness meditation is a painful, maybe. Okay, anyway, something like that, I think, where I was not giving you good news, meditation of emptiness, not so much good news, but I think you have to have that dilemma. I think is important. Because meditation of emptiness, the wisdom is trying to work with our habit, particularly not physical habit, the addiction of awareness. And that's really, really subtle. And yeah, I think, but faith and devotion, then we can kind of free ride in the time of death. So I think the best insurance, spiritual insurance, is the faith and devotion, practicing through the 7-limb practice. So anyway, I'm kind of joking. Wisdom, sometimes like intellectually it's very stimulating, it's interesting, but the emotionally wisdom meditation is painful. Is a pain. Pain because it's a okay. Okay, anyway, sorry. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you, everyone who is joining from everywhere. All of Rinpoche's students from Puerto Rico, from Portland, Oregon, from all over Seattle. Thank you for joining. And yes, shall we close with some dedication prayers, Rinpoche?
Yes, thank you. And yes, of course, Shantideva sent a request, and may all your Dhamma activities flourish, and all of your individuals, your Dhamma practice flourish. And we'll meet with a faith and devotion in Shantideva Pure Land. Okay. Changju Semjo Rinpoche Magi Banam Gi Gyojin Geba Nyamba Meba Yankone Gundu Bevarash. Changju Semjo Rinpoche Magi Banam Gi Gyojin Geba Nyamba Meba Yankone Gundu Bevarash. Changju Semjo Rinpoche Magi Banam Gi Gyojin Geba Nyamba Meba Yankone Gundu Bevarasho. Kangri Rave Gove Jingam De Pendang Dewa Malu Jongwe Chere Zewa Denzin Gyatsoyi Jave Side Bado Denyo. Kangri Rave Gove Jingam De Pendang Dewa Malu Jongwe Chere Zewa Denzin Gyatsoyi Jave Side Bado Denyo. Kangri Rave Gove Jingam De Pendang Dewa Malu Jongwe Jere Ziwan Denzin Gyazo Shabe Zide Bado Tengyo Chi Tubzu Jangji Jamgun Gyave Den Zingyon Bebe Gunsun Dabu Je Chozun Gube Lamen Tun Ruba Dazo Duje Gundu Shaten Shu Tubzu Jangji Jamgun Gyave Den Zingyon Bebe Gunsun Dabu Chozum Guvelemen Ruba Dazo Duje Gundu Shaten Shu Tubzu Jangji Jamgun Gyave Den Zingyon Bebe Gunsun Dabu Chozum Guvelemen Ruba Dazo Duje Gundu Shaten Shu Kewa Gundu Yanda Lamanda Jeme Chugi Bela Lonju Sadan Lamgi Yane Dorji Jangi Goban Yurdo Jo Kyabzum Larje Gwingi Chelabgi Gindin Denzin Kuze Tadin Zedin Jodu Gundu Kyabadan Tazo Dove Zozo Damin Jo Kyabzum Larje Gwingi Chelabgi Gindin Denzin Kuze Tadin Zedin Jodu Gundu Kyabadan Tazo Dove Zozo Damin Gyazon Laje Gwingi Jelangin Gindin Denzin Goze Dadin Zedin Jodu Gundu Kyabadan Tazo Dove Zozo Damin Jo.
Thank you, everyone. And if totally optional, but if anybody would like to recite the English of Rinpoche's long life prayer, I know there are students everywhere that would make me happy to recite this now. So you are welcome to join. You can unmute if you'd like. Embodiment of the three divine refuges.
Gendon Tenzin, holder of the teachings, may your life last for eternity.
May your
excellent deeds pervade all of time and space, and continuously ripen for the nourishment of myself and others.
Okay. So I think this praise was composed by Geshe Lharampa. So mainly, I'm eating good. I'm trying to exercise and and whatever lifespan will be same as everything. But I think the verse that composed by great master Geshe Lharampa. So again, Geshe Lha's reincarnation. Also, you should keep it in Geshe Lha's reincarnation will come soon. Geshe Lhara being very, very important in the Buddhism in the West. All these great scholars that under the Geshe Lha's, and it can, establish the Buddha Dharma in the mainstream of the, society. So, very, very crucial and important Geshe Lharampa's reincarnation. I think it's sometimes we grasp, reincarnation comes soon. So again, open, not controlling, faith, not controlling, opening our heart. And
yes,
and I think it's a very, very important. Geshe Lhara is very, 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 we need to remember, particularly in Dharma practitioner in the West, need to remember his contribution in his, I don't want to say word legacy, but that blessing that he left. And we need to remember, very, very important, very, very important. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much to teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you.
Rinpoche.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, everyone. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Mary Jane.
From Canada.
Oh, from Canada. Very cool. So glad you can make it to Shanti Deva Center.
Yeah, Big Apple. Here we are. So,
and you guys, please bring him back ongoingly.
Yes, we will try. This has been amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so
San
much.
Francisco says good night.
Good night, Lynn.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hola, Jose y Gloria.
Hello from Puerto Rico.
Hello. Thank you for your question. I really loved it. Yeah.